Noticing a trap in the middle of the forest, Mwaji shouts for the one responsible to come out of hiding and approach them. Then, Ceres decides to step out from behind the tree where she was concealed. The gang leader recognizes her as a chim fly sword, a type of subordinate that appears in the Lord Fly's ranks. With that, he asks the chim sword to hand over the leopard woman and the elf girl, promising to let her leave alive and, moreover, to welcome her into the Ashing group. However, Ceres refuses the offer and asks what he intends to do. The leader responds that he will make her suffer with his curses to the point where she would prefer death. To frighten her even more, he claims that even the 5 dragons could not defend themselves from his curses. At that moment, she recalls that the 5 dragons were killed by her group, and Ceres takes a step back, asking them not to harm Eve and Lisbeth. The leader of the Ashing group promises to act as she requested, and Ceres agrees to lead them to the 2, asking them to follow her. However, the leader notices something suspicious and states that she doesn't intend to hand over Eve and Lisbeth so easily. Ceres asks what he means by that, and he makes it clear that her words betray her, revealing that she doesn't genuinely intend to deliver the 2, as she's claiming. After all, Ceres herself asked everyone to accompany her, something that wouldn't be necessary, as only a few men would suffice to go with her. Therefore, he believes that Ceres intended to lure them into a trap in the forest. He then orders his men to keep their distance and prepare to attack. Before continuing, the leader explains that his soldiers are successors of the Assassin's Guild. However, a certain hero from another world declared the guild as an evil institution and wiped it out. The Ashing group took the place of the exterminated guild as curse users. Ceres realizes that he is talking about very strong poisons that kill their targets without leaving traces, something that has nothing to do with curses, as the leader claims. The leader continues his story, saying that the tragedy of the Dragon Knights fell into the lap of the Ashing group, as did the death of the 5 dragons. Upon hearing this, Ceres immediately understands what's happening. The group invented a convenient excuse, claiming that all of this happened due to the curses they possess. When she realizes that she uncovered the scheme, the leader admits that they took advantage of the curse story to proclaim themselves as the slayers of the 5 dragons, strengthening their lies and maintaining fear among people, until they would eventually be exposed as a farce. Upon hearing all of this, Ceres asks what his real goal is with these lies. The leader replies that his initial objective is to use Duke Zoan to gain an important status in the nation. But in the end, his true intention is to conquer the entire country, starting with the people. The Ashing leader then realizes that Ceres is not accompanied by her allies and asks where they are. Ceres responds that it's just her, Eve, and Liz in the forest, but the leader refuses to believe her, thinking that Ceres would never have the courage to face the entire group alone. Realizing that he doesn't believe her, Ceres removes her mask, revealing that she is the true person responsible for the defeat of the 5 dragons. Even so, the leader continues to doubt her and claims that Ceres wouldn't be able to defeat them alone. She then asks why he's so certain of that, and the leader responds that she simply wouldn't be able to surpass the strongest human. With that, he calls the man who would be Eve's final opponent and introduces him as Belga. Behind him stands Vagan, Belga's older brother. However, the family doesn't stop there. Besides these 2, there is also a younger brother named Zaras. After introducing the 3, the leader asks what Ceres intends to do now, surrounded by his subordinate. Ceres then falls to her knees and says that from that point on, the rest is up to Touka. He quickly paralyzes all the Ashing members and poisons them. After that, Touka approaches the group leader and explains that the trap set for them was actually a bluff. Touka knew from the start that they would notice the trap and not move forward. Therefore, they fell into a trap within another trap. Additionally, Touka instructed Ceres to act as if she was trying to lure them into the forest, so they would suspect a larger plan and think they were in control of the situation. In the end, everything went as Touka had planned from the beginning. However, he also credits the success of the mission to Ceres, who managed to follow all of his instructions. He then asks Ceres to go to Eve to update her on the situation. Shortly after, another troop begins to approach them. Eve briefly analyzes the troop, and Touka paralyzes and kills the entire poisoned army. The Duke himself appears and promises to kill Eve no matter what. To further anger her, he says he will sell Liz to a brothel and make her serve clients while wearing a leopard mask. Despising the Duke, Touka attempts to paralyze him, but receives a notification that he has reached the maximum limit of active targets. He then improvises. Instead of paralyzing him, he simply poisons him, making it easier for Eve to kill him. The surviving warriors decide to flee when they realize they are cornered, but Touka orders Eve to kill everyone who tries to escape. The Duke starts getting angry with his soldiers and says he won't allow them to flee until they manage to kill Touka. He begins to lose his sanity alone. Evis thanks Touka because, thanks to him, she felt joy during a battle again. Fighting alongside him brought back the excitement she used to feel. Then, Eve charges at the warriors, killing them one by one. The Duke, realizing he will need to flee, promises revenge when they meet again. But Touka uses his paralysis ability to prevent him from escaping, calling him an idiot because he never intended to let him get away. Afterward, Touka lets Eve take care of the rest. She explains that she would have no problem forgiving him if the Duke had only tried to deceive her, but since he also planned to lay his hands on Liz, Eve proceeds with the execution, decapitating him. After that, Touka asks Seres to take care of Liz and prepare to leave. He then uses the freeze ability on one of the corpses, explaining that when used on a body, the ability treats the corpse as an object, allowing it to be turned into powder, which lets him dispose of the bodies without leaving any traces. Additionally, Touka plans to make the bodies disappear to confuse people because if they simply vanish, it will raise suspicion about their existence. Jean discovers that the Duke's entire army, including the Ashen Group, has been wiped out, ruining his plan to turn them into subordinates. However, he orders his men to at least find the bodies of the Ashen members so he can provide a plausible explanation to the goddess. Meanwhile, Liz talks to Seres about some false beliefs that an old woman instilled in her mind. Seres tells her to forget everything she heard and says that from now on, she should only trust the words of people who genuinely care about her. Hearing this, Liz says she will only listen to Seres and her friends, following their advice as if they were her older sisters. After Touka returns to the location, Seres suggests that he get some sleep while she keeps watch. However, Touka decides to stay there as well since he can't sleep. During the conversation, he asks her to let him touch her elf ears. He touches her and feels a strange sensation upon touching her ears for the first time. Seres, slightly embarrassed, decides to change the subject, asking if he has any special feelings for Eve or Liz. After all, the way he interacts with the two conveys a strong kindness, similar to what he shows when he's near her. Touka replies that he is kind to Eve because she reminds him a lot of his uncle's personality, although the way of speaking is different. When talking about his uncles, Touka says they are the only reason he wants to return to his world. As for Liz, Touka sees her as a version of himself, as both of them suffered abuse from older people. However, the only thing that differentiates them is Touka's hostility, who spares no effort to kill anything that threatens him. Moreover, he doesn't seek to save that world. Instead, Touka only wants to carry out his selfish revenge. Therefore, he makes it clear that Seres can withdraw her support for him whenever she wants, as they are treading that path solely because of him. However, Seres says she also has her own vision of the goddess of Alien, so she doesn't think of abandoning the mission. Touka then agrees to grant any request she has, as he feels he owes her for staying by his side until now. But before continuing, Touka puts Liz to sleep and says she can think about it calmly. Meanwhile, Sogo secretly trains with Na. Na asks the girl not to tell anyone about the training because it would be practically impossible to get Vishio's permission for them to train. The next day, Sarah suggests they give a name to the mercenary group they are part of since they will need to identify themselves when crossing the land of monsters. She proposes the name Lord Fly Warriors, and everyone approves of her suggestion. Moving forward, they arrive at the land of the golden-eyed monsters. Eve asks Touka to place some mana in her hand, and thus, she visualizes a map with a red dot, which supposedly marks the location of the Witch of Taboos, according to the information she received. As night falls, Touka recalls the reasons that made him hate the goddess, channeling all that hatred as he gazes at the land of monsters, a place filled with beasts that will give him a lot of XP. The next day, the goddess congratulates the students for leveling up, but makes it clear that it won't be enough. After all, they still lack combat skills and technique. With that in mind, she decides to call upon the most famous warriors from all the nations to train them. The goddess also informs them that the forces of the Great Demon Empire are mobilizing and that the gods need the heroes to continue leveling up while learning to fight for real. For that reason, she intends to take them to train in the land of the golden-eyed monsters. My friends, if she crosses paths with Touka, he will get very angry, and things won't end well. So, leave your like, subscribe, and I'll definitely bring part 10 for you all. See you in the next video.